Last summer, I went on a solo camping trip deep in the northern woods of Oregon. I'm not the most experienced camper, but I had a decent tent, supplies, and a desperate need to get away from everything for a few days. I found a spot off a barely marked trail, set up camp near a small stream, and by dusk, I had a fire going. It was peaceful, just the sound of crickets, the occasional rustle of trees, and the distant rush of the stream. My phone had no service, which honestly felt like a blessing. Around midnight, I was still sitting by the fire, lost in my own thoughts, when I noticed movement across the stream on the edge of the tree line. It was subtle at first, just the feeling of being watched. Then, I saw it. Someone, or something, was standing behind a tree, just far enough away that I couldn't make out details. But I knew it wasn't an animal. It was too tall, too still. I stared, waiting for it to move, to step forward to say something. But it didn't. It just stood there, half hidden behind the trunk. I tried calling out, "Hey, you okay?" But no answer. No reaction. Just silence. Eventually, I grabbed my flashlight and shone it toward the figure. That's when I realized there was nothing there. No person. No shadow. Nothing behind the tree. I laughed it off. Told myself I was tired, maybe just seeing things. I went back to the fire, added more wood, and tried to relax. About 20 minutes later, I heard twigs snapping behind me. Not far, maybe 10 or 15 feet. I spun around with my light. Again, nothing. But the snapping continued, circling the campsite. Not fast. Not chaotic. Just slow, deliberate crunches. Like someone walking in a slow arc just outside the light's reach. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed zipped in my tent with a pocket knife clutched in one hand and the flashlight in the other. Every sound made me flinch. Every breeze through the trees felt like a whisper meant only for me. By sunrise, it all stopped. The woods were quiet again, almost too quiet. I packed everything as fast as I could and hiked back to my car. I didn't look back once. Here's the thing though, 2 weeks later, I was scrolling through a hiking forum where people share trails and photos from Oregon. I clicked on a thread titled, "Unmarked Campsites You Should Avoid." Just curiosity, I guess. One of the posts caught my eye. A guy wrote about camping near a stream north of a broken trail marker. Said he left in the middle of the night after seeing a figure watching him from the trees. The part that really hit me? He uploaded a photo he'd taken earlier that evening. His tent, the fire, the trees, and in the background, barely visible behind a tree, was a tall, dark silhouette, the same exact place I had camped. And the figure, it was standing in the same spot I thought I'd imagined it. I've never told anyone this story, not because I'm afraid of being called crazy, but because I don't really have a good explanation for what happened. It took place in the summer of 2018, when I was 22 years old. I had gone on a solo camping trip in northern Oregon, in a forested area just outside a small town called Elgin. I'd done trips like this before. I liked disconnecting from the world for a few days. Just me, my tent, a fire, and the silence of the woods. I always brought a map, GPS, and all the essentials. I wasn't some rookie hiker. The first night was uneventful. Cold air, crackling fire, distant hoots of owls. Perfect. But on the second day, I decided to go deeper into the woods. I wanted to find a lake I'd read about online. The trail wasn't well marked, but I figured if I followed the map and the general direction, I'd be fine. Around noon, I came across a narrow path cutting away from the main trail. It didn't look like much, just a barely visible footpath winding through dense trees. But something about it felt inviting, like it was meant to be found. I stepped onto the path. At first, it was peaceful, quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy in your ears. About 30 minutes in, the trail seemed less natural. Trees looked twisted. The air was cooler, heavier. I started noticing strange markings on the trees, vertical slashes, always in sets of 3. At some point, I realized I hadn't heard a single bird or insect in over an hour. That's when I should have turned back. But I didn't. Eventually, I reached a clearing. In the middle was a strange wooden structure, like a handmade hut made of branches, bones, and rope. It looked ancient, like it had been there for decades, untouched by time or weather. I got this overwhelming sense of dread in my gut. I didn't want to get closer, but I also couldn't look away. Suddenly, I heard something behind me, leaves crunching, slow and deliberate. I turned around, expecting maybe a deer or even a bear, but there was nothing. I stood frozen for a good minute listening. Then came the whisper. It was soft, almost like wind through the trees, but there were words. I swear it said, "You're not supposed to be here." I spun around again. No one. But I could feel something watching me. Not just watching, studying me. I backed away slowly, trying not to run. The whisper came again, this time louder. "Go back." Then I heard something crash through the trees, maybe 20 feet away. I didn't wait. I ran, full sprint, through the path, branches whipping my face, lungs burning. I don't know how long I ran, but eventually I stumbled back onto the main trail. Even then, I didn't stop running until I saw my tent. That night, I didn't sleep. Every crack of a branch outside made me jump. I packed up at first light and left. A week later, I tried to look up anything about that area, urban legends, stories, missing people. Nothing. But when I went back to the hiking forum where I found the lake recommendation, the post was gone. Not just deleted, the user who posted it didn't exist anymore. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I stayed in that clearing a few minutes longer. I don't think it would have let me leave. It was late September when my cousin Dave and I decided to go camping deep in the woods of British Columbia. The area we chose wasn't a designated campground, more like a forgotten spot Dave had marked during a hiking trip months earlier. It was remote, quiet, and completely cut off from cell service. We set up camp in a clearing by a creek. There was no one around for miles. The first day was perfect. We hiked, fished, and cooked dinner over the fire. That night, the stars were clearer than I had ever seen. Around 11 p.m., we were sitting by the fire, talking about random things, mostly stupid high school stories, when we heard a sound from the woods behind us. It was faint, like something brushing against tree branches. We froze and listened. Probably just a deer, Dave muttered, though he didn't sound too sure. But then we heard it again, this time closer. Not a rustling, but a crunch, like a boot on dry leaves. Dave grabbed a flashlight and pointed it toward the sound. Nothing. Just trees and blackness. We sat there for a while silent, trying to ignore the growing tension in the air. Then I noticed something that made my stomach sink. The forest had gone quiet. Too quiet. You don't realize how much background noise there is, bugs, birds, even the creek, until it's suddenly gone. Dude, something's wrong, I whispered. Dave nodded slowly. Let's go inside the tent for a bit. Maybe we're just being paranoid. We zipped ourselves into the tent, but neither of us could sleep. We left the fire burning outside, its glow flickering against the fabric of the tent. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. They were circling the tent. I nudged Dave awake. His eyes widened as the sound continued. We didn't say a word, just listened. Suddenly, it stopped, right outside the entrance. I swear I could hear breathing, shallow and raspy, like someone was standing inches away. Then came the whisper. It wasn't a word, just a low humming whisper, like someone trying to speak but not quite forming sounds. Dave reached for the knife we kept by the side of the tent. And then, nothing. The sound vanished. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing. We waited for what felt like an hour before either of us moved. When the sun finally came up, we stepped outside. The fire had burned down to embers. There were footprints in the dirt, barefoot. Human, but large, way larger than any normal foot. No shoe tread, just long, pale prints in the soil. We packed up and left within the hour. When we got home, Dave called the local ranger's office. He didn't tell them everything, just that we heard something strange and saw footprints. The ranger on the phone went silent for a few seconds before saying, "You camped by the old creek trail, didn't you?" Dave hesitated. "Yeah." "You're not the first ones," the ranger said quietly. "Best not to go back there." He hung up. We haven't been back to that forest since. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I swear I hear that same raspy breathing outside my window. If you made it this far, maybe you belong here. Subscribe to Whisper Cage, more true horror is waiting.